James sent me this video, and you wouldn't know about this bit of truth if I hadn't seen it. Well, a bit of difference if I hadn't seen it on this video. Mark Felton, the King's Secret. Did George VI abuse his power in the Second World War? It's very interesting, but it just throws up many more questions for me. Please go over to this channel and watch the whole video. I am just reporting on what I've seen, and I've put some of this video in because there's just so much information. But let's carry on with the video for a moment. And thank you, James, for sending me this video. I hope Mark Felton doesn't mind me copying a bit of his video. It is so hard to leave any of it out because he's trying to show you the connections between the royal families. So he's got to talk quite a bit to show you the connections and what it all means. But anyway, let's continue.
However, whilst researching something completely different, I started to come across the very outer edges of something which I think should be made public concerning King George VI in World War II. This secret operation that I've uncovered you won't find referenced in any history books about King George VI or the Second World War, or if you do, they are the most oblique references as possible. At the Royal Archives at Windsor Castle, which is where I discovered the documents to make this video. So why is that? Well, it's because the operation was kept secret, using British military resources to help his own German royal relatives, many of whom were Nazis or Nazi supporters during the war. An operation that, had it been made public in 1945, would have caused great disquiet in Britain, and I'm sure some direct criticism of the British royal family. So bear with me. You first need to understand just how German the British royal family still was in World War II, and the cosy royal trade union that existed across Europe that stood above national politics. The current royal house that sits on the British throne is primarily German in origin. King George VI descended from the first king of that dynasty, George I, who was also King of Hanover in Germany.
This is what you find out if you start to do research. You realise they're not just king in your country, they're king in another country. Who has a system like that? The Romans. They're like emperors, like Prince Philip was Prince of Greece and Prince of Denmark. They're emperors. They've got more than one territory. Yeah. So, that's what these people are.
Subsequent kings and queens in this family largely married continental cousins, almost always German or partly German. George VI himself was basically German. His father George V was German and Danish, and his mother, Queen Mary, was also German with a dash of Hungarian. It was George V who changed the family name from the distinctly un-British Saxe-Coburg und Gotha to Windsor, which it has remained so to the present day.
Quite incredible that really sitting on the English throne are Germans pretending to be English. And we're being run by that. A group of people who changed their name. Oh, we were helping all our family in the war, the Germans. Oh, but now, because we're supposed to be English kings and queens, we've got to change our name. Quite incredible, because that means that Victoria must have been the same. And look at the amount of children she had and how many of them married into these families. Look at the Queen. She's married Philip, another one. quite incredible that we haven't noticed this and how important it was, realising that these people were Germans, but they're the Romans. That's what they really are. It's the Romans. Anyway, let's carry on with the video.
Via Queen Victoria's large extended family, George VI was closely related to most of the royal families of Europe, as well as the many princely houses of Germany, not the least of which being the House of Hanover, from whom his own dynasty had originated, as I said, with King George I way back in 1714. Ernest Augustus, Duke of Brunswick, second cousin of King George VI. His father had even held a British title from 1878 until 1917, Duke of Cumberland and Teviotdale. That was until King George V somewhat reluctantly took the British title away from this German prince 3 years into World War I, one of several royal relatives whose German titles were so officially deprived to save the House of Windsor's British image. The British king's German relatives were on the wrong side.
He says that they're on the wrong side, but all I can see is, when they're looked up, so some have a totalitarianism structure. And we've grown up believing that Russia was communist, but it says that it had been totalitarianism. If Russia's got it, a lot of the Middle East have it, then we've got it. It's no different. So it's all one thing, run by whoever. I mean, Charles does have many countries, so he's got to be an emperor status, really. Just look at them all. He's even got the Commonwealth, proxy king here, so many places. There is only one side. Obviously, this person's done a lot of research. They said that Prince Charles gave him permission to release this information. That's quite incredible. Why would Charles want that released? Showing that his whole family is German, and in the war they were supporting the enemy. Because they were German, not English. Don't you think that's incredible?
And not only the wrong side, but some of them had apparently gone to the dark side. Ernest Augustus, Duke of Brunswick, had married the daughter of Britain's arch-enemy in World War I, Kaiser Wilhelm II. A gathering that took place in 1939 to celebrate the old emperor's 80th birthday. Out of the blue, a telegram had arrived from Buckingham Palace. She writes, quote, "What pleased my father particularly was the fact that he had been remembered by the King and Queen of England. Throughout King George V's reign, the English court had, since 1914, completely ignored the Kaiser's very existence. Now, 25 years after the outbreak of the First World War, the King's son, George VI, had sent his heartiest congratulations." End quote.
My mum would never ever believe this in a million years. Never. But what we find is that there's all these things we don't know about, and then we find out about them afterwards. I mean, I don't even know what Tartarian is anymore, the word. I think old tech, the old world, yes, but we've got totalitarianism, Tartarianism. You see what I mean? They're a bit similar, aren't they? So what was Tartarianism? But in that time, those people far more advanced. But, oh yes, and so, you know, that part finished in the First and Second World War. In the First World War, England was still gaining territories. Yeah. The Roman Empire turned into the British Empire. And they obviously stuffed all the Germans in there as well. But imagine, obviously my mum will say that my uncle died, whatever it was. She'll have these stories and all these people who put their lives on the line For what? For absolutely what?
Now, I wonder what the millions of households across Britain who had lost sons during the First World War against the Kaiser's armies, and the hundreds of thousands of living veterans who had survived that terrible war, would have thought of their king sending birthday congratulations to the man who had started that terrible war, and had in fact been officially listed as a war criminal at the end of it. Such social niceties only reinforce the cosy relationship between the various royal houses, somehow disassociated from the realities of history and politics. Anyway, this is a good indication that King George VI was very much a member of that Royal Trade Union, as some historians have called it, and he was to aptly demonstrate this 6 years later at the conclusion of yet another bloody war against the Germans.
So all these royals have a code, and it goes beyond and above politics. Them first, the Romans, trying to organise everything. Yeah, imagine the King of England sending... Well, we're going to see it. No, I'm not going to ruin it. We're just going to let the video play a bit, and we're going to see what he says.
Having lost their position at the end of World War I, he still retained enormous land holdings, many different palaces and castles, and enormous wealth. Brunswick Palace was one such place, and a trio of castles, Cumberland Castle at Gemünden in Austria, and two in Germany, Marienburg near Hanover, and Blankenburg near Brunswick. World War II was a tricky one for Ernest Augustus, remembering that, as well as being a German, he had also, like his father until 1917, been a British prince. In the 1930s, he had tried for rapprochement between Hitler and Britain. Hitler was also desirous of such a rapprochement, and had even asked the Duke to arrange a marriage between his daughter, Princess Frederica, and the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VIII. The Duke had refused, believing that the age difference between the two was too great. Interestingly, in 1936, following Edward's abdication, the newly minted Duke of Windsor and his wife Wallis had stayed with the Duke at Cumberland Castle in Germany. Ernest Augustus never formally joined the Nazi Party, though it has emerged he attempted to join in 1941, but he did donate funds to the Nazis and was close to several of the top Nazi leaders. In 1999, Bild-Zeitung, a German newspaper, alleged that after an investigation that Ernest Augustus profited from the expropriation of Germany's and Austria's Jews, taking shares in a Jewish-owned bank and an Austrian building firm, as well as several other companies. The Duke's grandson sued Bild over these allegations. The World War II Grand Duke's son and heir, confusingly again Ernest Augustus, joined the SS in 1933 but left after 1 year. During World War II he fought on the Russian front as an army officer and was later imprisoned by the Gestapo after the 1944 July plot.
In 1936, Berlin held the Olympics. They say that some countries didn't go to it because Germany was picking up speed in wanting to rule the world, and so these people didn't go. It was obviously a very big event that went through the city. And then I saw it. Do you see what's here? An eagle. Now, Hitler has come in. Heil Hitler, swastika, changed everything, but the Olympics procession through the town has to have eagles in it. So he was flying swastikas on the flags, you can see some up here, but then the double eagles go by, and I thought, if he was a real person and he really wanted something, well, I'm not saying we all agreed with it, but if he wanted this thing, this new world with the swastikas and the Heils and all that, and it was all different, why on earth would he, for the procession through town, have on the flags double eagles? You do not put double eagles up for nothing. I've done so many videos about it. The presidential seal has an eagle like this. It's a one-headed eagle, but it's still got the legs and things in its legs, just like lots of other countries. I've shown you flags of the people still flying the eagles. If you had started some new, I suppose they were fascist, weren't they? Were they? Oh, I don't know, whatever it was. You would not, in your procession through town, when you now are the top man in the world, be showing double eagles. So my thoughts were that Hitler actually has to be an emperor, because you only fly double eagles when you're an emperor. And as you can see, the royal family are German and don't really want you to know about it, so they changed their name. But if you are got something new in the world, you would not be flying double eagles. So he had to be an emperor. So at the beginning, he's obviously a goodie. By the end of the war, he's killed himself and it's over. So the story changed. So I always thought that was quite fascinating. It has to be, because if so, say for instance, I take over the world. I'm not going to be flying them, am I? Oh yes, let's just put the flags up. Those are for the Romans. But I really don't understand what you don't see. Do you see that? That's a row of Germans with swastikas, and the things they are holding are just like the Roman things. And you won't believe it, but you see these? These are eagles on the top. Eagles! Can't you see? We've all been lied to. That is a bunch of Romans with eagles. Yeah, do you get it now? It is crazy, but that's what I see.
The Duke of Brunswick had married, as I mentioned, the Kaiser's daughter, Princess Victoria Louisa of Prussia. She herself was a great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Towards the end of World War II, the Duke and his wife resided at Blankenburg Castle. By April 1945, the US Army was rapidly approaching the village of Blankenburg and the Harz Mountains region, which was being defended by what remained of the German 11th Army. For the first time, Blankenburg was directly threatened by enemy action. US artillery fire struck the town, and aircraft also attacked it. Patients from the local hospital were evacuated to the castle for safety, including wounded German soldiers. But the castle was also crammed full of art treasures and precious items, much of it owned by the royal family, others evacuated to the castle from museums for safekeeping. The cellars were also crammed with boxes of German Foreign Office files from Joachim von Ribbentrop's department, containing all the documentary evidence of pre-war German diplomatic contacts with Britain and other nations.
I've put a bit more a little bit later on in the video. This is London, bombed in the Second World War. I'd say we lost. Amazing that all this is just concentrated on one place, but I'd say we lost. That looks like we lost. And as I've said, Hitler was an emperor. Strange hand he's got there. Look at the palm of his hand. Can you do that? Don't think anybody can do that. Do you see that? That's a bit weird, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, maybe everything was different and they changed the story. But it is quite incredible that our royal family end up being the Germans. So it's like you're in another country watching your whole world collapse over there. Yeah, anyway, let's carry on.
The local military commandant informed the Duke that the castle would not be included in his regional defence plan, to hopefully spare it and its treasures from destruction. On the 20th of April 1945, Hitler's 56th and last birthday, the headquarters staff of the 11th Army had been taken prisoner by the Americans. Blankenburg also fell. US forces drove up to the castle itself and warned the Duke that any villagers harbouring such men or giving them succour would suffer from US retaliation. The Americans allowed the Duke to go out and speak to local communities to urge holdouts to give themselves up. Due to the agreed post-war occupation zones of Germany, Blankenburg was in the British zone, and British troops arrived to take over from the Americans. Princess Victoria Louisa wrote that the British authorities were most interested in the crates of German Foreign Office files in the castle's cellars. Revealed that before the British could organize the crates transfer, US officers arrived and ordered the princess to open the cellars, whereupon the crates were transferred to US Army trucks by a unit of black GIs and driven away. She noted that the British returned a few days later and the Duke showed them the empty cellars. Princess Victoria Louisa went to some lengths in her book to badmouth the British occupation forces, portraying them as being martinets, until the Brunswicks began to have dealings with the regional military government in Hanover. Brings me to the event that I discovered concerning the British king and his German royal relatives in their castle at Blankenburg. According to the London Protocol of 1944, the Free State of Brunswick was supposed to form part of the British zone of occupation. However, a month after the Allies had captured Blankenburg, the British made a geographical adjustment to the local boundary between the British and Soviet zones, an adjustment that would place Blankenburg in the Soviet zone of occupation.
Amazing that the zones got changed, isn't it? Very interesting indeed, but one thing I don't understand, let's just have a look. Where is it? Yeah. Germany took Denmark, or a part of Denmark, in the Second World War, but there it's already part of Germany. Yeah.
The Duke was naturally horrified to learn that his castle and all of his own treasures, antiques and assorted chattels would soon find themselves in Soviet hands. As I mentioned, the castle had also been operating as a collecting point for other Brunswick art treasures from regional museums. The Duke had also brought to the castle valuables from yet another of his own properties, Herrenhausen, to protect them from Allied bombing. Special Allied Art Treasure Collecting Center had been established at Keller, 30 miles northwest of Brunswick, under German art dealer E.J. Otto. At Blankenburg Castle, the provincial conservator, Karl Sedke, was in overall charge of the treasures. Somehow, news of the plight of the Brunswicks reached Buckingham Palace, and King George VI, the Duke of Brunswick's cousin. An order, and it was an order, as I will shortly show, was issued by King George VI through the chain of command to the British 11th Armoured Division and its 159th Infantry Brigade.
I have mentioned it before, right, when they've told us that the king or the royal family of today take a back seat and it's the government that deals with everything. But to have a king and a government, it has to be both of them. You can't have one without the other, otherwise it doesn't work in this supposedly constitutional thing. But the king holds the ace. If they want to disband the government because they're not happy, they can do it. They have the overall control to say what they want to happen, supposedly. And so that would mean he exercised that. A British king in the middle of a war, and actually all they're doing is helping people who are German in those countries while British troops are fighting those countries. But, you know, at the end of the day, when I saw how bombed London was, now, not that you can really see it, but this is London, and this is what supposedly happened in the Second World War. It got that bombed. It's hard to believe that we had a Royal Air Force protecting our country, isn't it? What, they were over there bombing the Germans while the Germans were over here bombing us? It doesn't really add up when you see. I mean, that's utter devastation. Utter devastation. So what happened here? Because I can't see that our Royal Navy, Air Force, were looking after us. It just looks like obliviation. But we're going to carry on and listen to a bit more of this video.
Brigadier J.B. Churcher must have informed the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion, the Cheshire Regiment, an infantry battalion, to send a party of men, several dozen strong, and 30 army trucks to Blankenburg Castle. Captain Paul McConnell was given command of the operation, and absolutely no mention or word of this operation could be found in the 1st Battalion Cheshire Regiment's war diary, even though I and the regimental historian checked it very carefully. It was almost as if the operation was secret, which becomes blindingly obvious once you start to research it in detail. A British member of the famous Monuments Men Art Protection Unit was dispatched to Blankenburg to help sort out the items and aid in their removal. That officer was Major Felix Harbord of the Royal Engineers. The operation would involve the removal of the museum collections from Blankenburg to the Allied Art Collection Point at Keller, but also, and this is the important point, primarily the packing up and removal by British soldiers using British Army transport of the private treasures, property, furniture and other chattels of the Duke of Brunswick, and its removal to another of his properties, Marienburg Castle. Newly begun on occupation duties in defeated Germany, were ordered by the highest authority of all, that is King George VI, to act as removals men, tasked with days of hard labour, carrying privately owned art, antiques, furniture, rugs, tapestries and china, and the entire contents of that castle, and safely transporting this material to another privately owned castle, diverting them from the duties that they had joined up to perform, royal removals not being part of the British Infantry's Handbook of Operations. That this operation was ordered by King George VI to help his close German relative is undoubtedly true, and that it was kept secret is undoubtedly true. So some of you, particularly those who are not British, may be asking, so what's the big deal? Why can't the king help out his close relative? What's wrong with saving beautiful things from the Soviets? Well, of course, I have no problem with the saving of art treasures and other historical items. However, the problem lies in the king's ordering of the use of British soldiers to perform this operation. The British monarch is a constitutional monarch, and they cannot carry on like this. They are not supposed to interfere in state matters, and certainly not in the military chain of command, in order to obtain favours for their relatives, and use state resources to complete that favour.
Well, thank you very much to this person, because they've given more enlightenment to show us the connections that these people have all above your heads. Trump's in there as well. They're all in there. Well, I've told you what I see them as. Look, he's got an eagle on there. Well, anyway, I hope you found this enlightening. As I said, thank you very much to Mark Felton. Go over to his channel and watch the whole thing, because I've just taken a bit of it. And thank you, James, for sending it to me.